Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening, and I hope you're having a wonderful 12th of July, because the 12th of July is an interesting day. It's very important for certain unionists in Northern Ireland in particular, and some in Scotland, and I believe also there are a few in Wales and England, but mainly in Northern Ireland. It's the 12th of July, it's the marching season, it's the big day to celebrate the victory of King William over James the Second. James the First, James Second, I forget. King James in the Battle of the Boyne, which didn't actually take place in the Boyne Valley. It was, or it wasn't near the river. It was. Anyway, it was not there. Somewhere near the Boyne River, not exactly at the Boyne River. But anyway. It's a very important day, and of course we're going to have a little listen to some members of the Orange Order and their supporters. James II, thank you so much, Raven. James II, yeah. So we're going to listen to some of their supporters and Orange men who were asked about Catholics who were not feeling like turning up.
Against it coming, but there is a lot of Roman Catholics that come down to watch the parade.
We don't get offended with their parades. They've got parades, IRA Republican parades.
One of my
Wait a minute, okay, so I have to slow down a bit. They have their parades, IRA parades. Okay, so are you comparing the Orange Order to the IRA?
Long-time Catholic friends texted me yesterday and called me an orange bee. But in a good way.
In the future, I think Ireland will be one of the big leagues up under the same roof.
There's process to go to St. Patrick's Day, so to me, like, they should just come and suck it up and come and enjoy it.
It's also
sorry, they should suck it up and come and enjoy it. But how do you suck up something and enjoy it? Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me.
like the celebration of the Battle of the Boyne, when King William had defeated King James at the Battle of the Boyne in 1690. But this is the 334th anniversary of it.
If you look at it, like, we've been talking to people there and they're from like all different parts of the world, and they've been over here today to see what it's all about. So it's not just Protestant now, it's like all different countries are coming in now into different religions.
So you've got people from all over the world coming, of course, but then there's the other half of the community here.
The other half have their part of their day as well. They have St. Patrick's Day, so you know they.
So the 12th of July is the same as St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick was... Oh my goodness. She's comparing St. Patrick's Day with the 12th of July, the battle of the commemoration of the Battle of the Boyne. How can you compare St. Patrick? Like, St. Patrick was a Christian. He spread Christianity in Ireland. Like, there wasn't Catholic and Protestant at the time. He was just regarded as a Christian. Is it because it's green and you don't like green?
They have their day and we have our day, and that's just how it is.
Do you think St. Patrick's Day and the 12th of July are similar in the...
St. Patrick's Day is celebrated in Japan. Okay, the least Christian country in the world, the least religious country in the world. It's not a huge event, but there are small celebrations of St. Patrick's Day in Japan. The Orange Order makes Jacob Rees-Mogg look like a modern Greek. They have some very way out there ideas. Yes, that's true. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, because they have, that's, to me, that's their day and this is our day. So
their day? Whose day? The Catholics? Because it's not just Catholics who celebrate St. Patrick's Day. You understand St. Patrick's Day is beyond, it's much more than a Christian holiday. People go to church, people go to Mass on St. Patrick's Day, but that's a minority. The vast majority of people go to the parade to celebrate the parade, to drink the green Guinness. Like, it's not, the religious aspect is it's completely commercialized, but they have their day and we have our day.
I guess the difference someone might say would be St. Patrick's Day is a celebration of a nationality rather than an event. The 12th of July is celebrating the Battle of the Boyne, which was it was a Catholic king versus a Protestant king. The Protestant king won. So there's an aspect of supremacy to it. Do you subscribe to that at all?
Well, you know, it's different for both cultures. You know, there's people on the mainland might know their history, but you know, both sides of the community need to sort of go forward from you know, previous conflicts. You know, to create peace. You know, throughout this country, you know, Europe, worldwide. You know, things need to progress and go forward from here, really.
We don't get offended.
Sorry, I'm sorry about the buffering, guys. I don't have any control over it. I think it's a YouTube issue. Hopefully it resolves itself. It normally does after a few minutes. Buffering over, great. But when he said the mainland, did he mean Europe? Mainland Europe? Because he says people on the mainland have a different opinion. I'm not sure what he meant by that. Or does he mean the UK? The rest of the UK is the mainland? I'm not sure.
With their parades. They've got parades, IRA Republican parades. We're loyalists. We're loyal Protestants. We're entitled to walk the Queen's Highway. And if they don't like the Queen's Highway, they walk the Queen's Highway. But they do it with balaclavas on.
Maybe they would feel intimidated.
I struggle to understand what he was saying, but it said something about wearing balaclavas and walking the Queen's Highway. It's the King's Highway now. What's that? Like, you have the right to march. It's whether it's a good thing or not.
Balaclavas on.
Maybe they would feel intimidated. I don't know, but that's a personal preference. Like, you shouldn't.
Sorry, intimidation is not a preference. You don't say, I prefer to be intimidated. I prefer not to be intimidated. It's not. You don't make the decision on whether you're intimidated or not.
You shouldn't feel intimidated, but I can maybe see why they are.
It's like though, like Gaelic and stuff. Like, I suppose if we went to a Gaelic match, you would feel a wee bit like. But again, it's their culture, it's their sport. So you just sort of like it is.
You're talking about a football game. Like, how would somebody be intimidated at a football? Like, if it's the fans that are intimidating you, like because you're supporting the opposite team. Like, in what way would you be intimidated? Like, the only way you'd feel intimidated is if you turned up with the wrong, jersey. That's like, hey, wait a minute, you shouldn't be supporting that team.
That's what it is. It doesn't need to be hatred. It could just be, but like.
I enjoy St. Patrick's Day the same as I enjoy this.
But like down in O'Hare, like the Catholics would come out and they sit and watch the parades in the morning because it's like community. We're all local. We know it.
Like some of the songs are about Boyne's Red Shores. Like, look at the lyrics of Boyne's Red Shores. Like, a lot, and this is just the traditional songs. There's also the more modern songs about loyalists killing people and stuff like that. Like, how would somebody not feel intimidated by that?
Each other.
It's a day to celebrate the Battle of the Boyne, Catholic King versus Protestant King wins.
Okay, but it's not so much about Catholic King, Protestant King. Yes, do these people know that the Pope backed King William? It was about power. It wasn't so much about religion. It was more about, King James is getting a bit big for his boots. And the Pope didn't like that. So the Pope was happy to back King William, a Protestant, in order to keep King James in his box.
You're saying that you're happy to go to something like St. Patrick's Day, but a lot of people were drawing an equivalence between, well, this is our St. Patrick's Day, Do you think that's a fair comparison to make at all, or...?
It is. It's like a day to celebrate.
But you don't have children at St. Patrick's Day talking about killing people, singing songs about killing people. There weren't songs sung about St. Patrick about how he killed the pagans, how he drove the pagans into the sea, how the pagans, there were so many dead pagans that the river ran red. Like, do you actually see? I think the problem is that people don't actually. I'm not an expert on this, okay. But I seem to understand more about the history of it than they do, apart from my mistake at King James I or II at the beginning. Like, let's scratch that. But apart from that, I seem to have a better understanding. Like, these are the traditional songs, not the modern one. The modern ones are absolutely terrible. It's about literally killing people that the loyalist paramilitaries would kill.
Yeah.
Our culture?
Yeah. I think it's just up to your personal preference. Some people are more staunch or hardcore than others, but I feel that you should be able to go to everything.
Historically, this march hasn't necessarily been, the other side of the community in Northern Ireland haven't necessarily felt that welcome at these events, or they've certainly not felt that they could go to something like that.
Before the Troubles, yeah, it was quite a community thing, yeah. And then we had the Troubles, but certainly Catholics are welcome, yeah. It's just...
So what do you say to people who still feel like they can't really go about their day-to-day life on a day?
I understand it, I definitely understand it, but I mean, it's just what it is here, like, but they're certainly welcome, you know. There's bigots on both sides.
Some Catholic people.
Okay, bigots on both sides. Like you have songs about killing people, and you're saying, well, there are bigots on both sides. Do you support these songs? Do you think these songs should be sang? Like if you said, what we want to do is we want to commemorate the Battle of the Boyne, okay. But why do you have all these loyalist paramilitary paraphernalia? Why do you have all these songs commemorating attacks on Catholics in Northern Ireland during the Troubles?
Would be against us coming, but there is a lot of Roman Catholics that come down to watch the parade. I used to work with guys and they would have been down, you know, watching the parade, bringing their children down and watching the parade down in Castle Street and all that there. So
is it like watching as in rubbernecking, or watching as in, oh, that's a very interesting parade? Or is it like, what the hell is going on here?
Everybody comes out for the watch of that.
You're from London, what are you doing over here?
Supporting the loyalist cause from the mainland, celebrating.
Okay. I got it wrong. When he refers to mainland, he means Britain. Does he understand that Britain is an island? Great Britain is an island. It's not the mainland. If you want to talk about mainland, you don't. Okay, never mind.
It's in the Battle of the Boyne from 1690, and embracing the culture of Ulster.
And so you've got, obviously this is one part of the community of Northern Ireland. A lot of the Catholics would feel kind of affronted or not sure about coming out for a day like today. What do you say to that?
Well, I think, you know, it's quid pro quo from St Patrick's Day. I think the...
What is it with St Patrick's Day? Do these people not understand what St Patrick's Day is about? St Patrick was a Christian. You claim to be a Christian, so you should have no problem celebrating St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick was not some sort of Republican. I don't think he understood the concept of republicanism. It did exist in a limited and specific way, but I don't think he understood the concept of republicanism. And like, how can you compare St. Patrick with the commemoration of the Battle of the Boyne? Okay.
The whole of Ireland, you know, should celebrate this.
What do you think about how, say, the Catholic community might feel about something like this going through their city?
To them, no, like, they should be used to it by now, so they should. No.
You should be used to it by now. Like, it's like if I hit you over the head with a frying pan like 50 times, then, you know, the 60th time or the 51st time, you should be used to it at that stage. Like, people are not able to go out of their homes. For anyone who doesn't know about this, you should look into it. They were burning stuff last night. Pallets, massive piles of pallets. Size of small skyscrapers. Tower block size. With some of these pallets were blue. These are ones that are not supposed to be burnt. They release toxic fumes. What they have to do before they light these pallets on fire is they have to hose down trees and houses next to these pallets, because what happens is, and it happened last year, I believe, the pallets, you know, went on fire, and part of the ash landed on people's rooftops and set them ablaze. So what they do is every year the fire brigade come out, waste public money, hosing down houses, literally hosing down houses so that they're wet, so that when the pallets are lit, they don't cause a massive fire.
They shouldn't be bothered by it because it's well policed and well patrolled. Knowing that with CCTV nowadays, it shouldn't be.
Why do you need, like, if it's a positive thing, why is it necessary for it to be heavily policed? Like, we don't say this about a pride march. You don't hear about, well, you know, there's there's the two sides of the Pride March. There are the bigots on one side and there's everyone else on the other. We don't hear about, well, there needs to be a counter, or people are intimidated by Pride. Well, some people are, but we know what those people are like. But like, imagine comparing this to a Pride March, which is really positive. People sing, dance, there's music. I don't know. Like they're trying to compare it to St. Patrick, but it's too controversial to require these people to have to pass a test for operating license before reproducing. I think it is probably too controversial, unfortunately. There should be a lot. I think Brad is onto something there. You know, we could apply it to a lot of people.
A problem? No, they should just accept it and go on with their lives.
Yeah. And so you say accept it and get on with their lives. There may still be people that feel intimidated by this kind of thing. You know, it's a.
Not at all. Why should they? Why should they? It's not doing them any harm.
Well, I suppose their argument might be something like the Orange Order. It doesn't allow Catholics into it. It's an organisation that kind of displays supremacy by going on these marches and that kind of thing.
There's a rule within the Orange Order that Catholics can't join. They've got to come from a Protestant heritage within it. But I'd like to see over in Scotland, I've got mixed communities. My neighbour could be a Catholic. I'd like to see that happen over here, and I think it might all quieten down a bit more. But I can't see it happening over here.
Why not?
But so what? Catholics joining the Orange Order? Why would Catholics join the Orange Order?
Because of religious beliefs that they still hold on to the past and that, and it's all to do with politics as well.
If you shit like that, the front doesn't come to that, because if you don't like the Orange institution or the celebrations of the parades,
like how can you see? The problem with the Orange Order is that it's deeply linked to loyalist paramilitaries. So if loyalist paramilitaries have defended the killing of Catholics, then why would a Catholic join the Orange Order? Like, I'm not taking a Catholic Protestant view here because I'm an atheist. Okay? So I don't know, what would happen if I'm stopped, on the street in Northern Ireland. Are you a Catholic? No, you must be a Protestant. No, what? I just don't understand these religious organizations, and the fact that you need to be a Protestant to be a part of the Orange Order. Do these people believe in Christian beliefs, the Christian idea of charity and stuff like that? Do they actually believe these things? Like, you shall not kill. That's one of the 10 commandments. You shall not steal. You hold the Sabbath. What is it? Holy or whatever. I'm forgetting them all. But is they claim to be Christian, but are they really Christian? But then that's a no true Scotsman fallacy. Roisin, thank you so much for that super chat. They burned the Irish flag, photos of Michelle O'Neill, Colin Eastwood, even Alliance politicians. With what other ethnicity within the UK would they be acceptable to do? Yeah, like I've compared the Orange Order a bit to English cosplayers. They would like to be English, but they're not English. They're Irish. They live in Ireland. They're Irish, but they don't want to be Irish. They want to be British, or English in particular. But they will never be English because they're not from England. But if they did these things in London, for example, people would be like, "What the hell? Why are you doing these things? We don't want you. We don't want this type of people around here. We don't want this sort of hatred. We're an open society in London, or in the rest of Britain, England, Scotland, and Wales without Northern Ireland." But it's anyway. Look, I do recommend checking out the rest of this video, but I'm not going to stay too long on it. It's really strange because, thanks so much, Roisin. It's very strange because you have people who I feel have hatred in their hearts. The people attending the marches probably don't. They are just, oh look, there's this. There's some music and there's ice cream and there's rock and there's there's parade and stuff like this. Something for the kids to see. Most people probably attending it don't understand what it's all about. But I think those who are organising it, it's about, we defeated the Catholics in 1690. Our king was put in charge. Let's forget that he was gay. He was probably gay. Let's forget that he was backed by the Pope. But it's a sort of Protestant supremacy. And it's sad. Like, why can't you celebrate your culture in a positive way? Why does it have to be linked to loyalist paramilitaries? Or we beat the other guy. We literally killed the other guy. I think it's a bit sad. Dylan, thank you so much for that super chat. Anyway, guys, let's move on. So, oh my goodness, this is... So before we get to Joe Biden, Stormer insists Biden on good form after meeting at White House. US President has faced accusations that he's too old and not mentally well enough to run the country. So the Prime Minister dismissed concerns that the US President's cognitive ability is not up to scratch as Joe Biden, faces calls to step down as a Democratic candidate ahead of the election of November. Mr. Biden's suitability as president has come into question after he faced a disastrous first presidential debate against Republican rival Donald Trump nearly 2 weeks ago. The president's doctor released a note on Tuesday saying Mr. Biden had shown no symptoms of Parkinson's disease or any other neurological disease after reports a specialist has visited the president several times over the past year. Hollywood star George Clooney, who's a massive donor to the Democratic Party, is in the New York Times. Wrote an opinion piece in the New York Times on Wednesday, urging his friend to step down as he's not the Joe big fucking deal Biden of 2010. Yes, look, a number of donors have been calling on Joe Biden to step down. Big name celebrities have been doing it. Even members of his party have been calling on him to step down. If we look at polling, I don't have the polling in front of me, but I looked at a number of polls that have compared other candidates to Donald Trump, and they're beating Donald Trump. The only one who's not beating Donald Trump is Joe Biden. Vice President Trump, yeah, that was another one. So he called Vladimir Zelensky Vladimir Putin. He called his vice president Donald Trump. Not to her face, but he was referring to her. His supporters and his defenders will say, look, he just had a bad day, or he was tired, or he's under a lot of stress, or we all make these types of mistakes. Look, these are reasonable responses, but it's perception. The perception is that Joe Biden is in mental decline. And there are still another few months to go before the general election. And he's making Donald Trump look coherent. That's the problem. It's not so much... Part of the problem, of course, is Joe Biden himself. But if he's making Donald Trump look good, then he has to step aside. They even had a big boy meeting where he called Kamala Harris, he referred to Kamala Harris, the vice president, as Donald Trump. This has to stop. He's not fit for the job. There are certain benefits he has as an incumbent. There's a huge benefit for the president going into a general election, into a presidential election, being the incumbent. But I think that benefit has been completely wiped out. Gareth, thank you so much for that super chat. The order was on its backside before unionists came along in the late 19th century, who revived it into a cultural cover for their political grievances. Well said, Gareth. And, I think it's a very interesting organization, and interesting is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. But it is a sinister, I believe it as a sinister organization. It's not interested in commemorating. It's about pushing a political narrative. And, can you be a unionist? Sorry, can you not be a unionist and be a member of the Orange Order, or vice versa? It's deeply linked to unionism. They keep talking about, well, we should welcome Catholics in, or it should be open to Catholics. But do they really want Catholics in? Thanks so much, Gareth. So there's been a lot of talk of Joe Biden being replaced but replaced with whom?
I know how to get things done.
The Democrats are worried that Joe Biden's campaign troubles could ruin their chances of securing a majority in the November 5th election.
Some have called for Biden to step aside. But if he did, who could replace him?
This is probably the most significant election of our lifetime.
Well, one obvious choice might be Kamala Harris, the first female vice president. A recent CNN poll actually found voters have Harris only 2% behind Trump in a hypothetical matchup. It found 47% of registered voters support Trump, 45% Harris.
She will certainly be a viable candidate, for sure. And I think that right now, this country is ready for anything.
But not everyone is keen on Harris leading the Democratic ticket.
I'm not really sure the country is ready for that just yet. I'm also not sure if they're ready for her specifically just yet.
So, who else could take Biden's place? Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, maybe? He's been touted as a potential face of the party for the Democratic presidential nominations in 2028.
I'll never turn my back on
Are you ready to take...
But despite that dedication to the president, he could be someone who replaces him if he steps down.
Newsom has been strong on domestic and foreign policy. He has taken trips to China to strengthen relations, been to Israel to meet impacted families of October 7th, and has called for a ceasefire in Gaza. But in 2021, Newsom faced a recall election for his position as California's governor over COVID issues such as mask mandates, closed schools, slow vaccine rollouts, and increased crime and homelessness in the state.
Just vote no and go to the mailbox and get these ballots back.
Newsom.
I just want to come. So first of all, Kamala Harris is not all that popular. She's more popular than Joe Biden, but there's a massive risk with going with her. This guy instead seems like the perfect candidate. He has the perfect politician smile, but maybe that's also a problem, that he could come across as fake. But then we're talking about Donald Trump, so Donald Trump, the fakest politician of all time. Would he be a better candidate? Maybe
Newsom managed to survive by gaining a large majority in the election.
And I'm very, very grateful to the people of California.
He reminds me of the guy from American Psycho. No, he's probably a good guy, but just he looks like the guy. Or maybe I'm being too unkind. He's more like Christian Bale from Batman. Bruce Wayne. He's like Bruce Wayne.
Another potential candidate to lead the ticket is Gretchen Whitmer, governor of the critical swing state, Michigan. After a shooting at Michigan State University in 2023, Whitmer has championed gun safety laws and pushed hard for restrictions.
We must act because week after week in America, we see grim, familiar headlines.
Whitmer has also been strong on abortion.
Is it too much? Is it much too late to replace Joe Biden? No, it's not, because technically at the convention, if there's an open convention, he could be replaced then. So there is a feeling that he will be replaced pretty soon, but it could be at the convention. So, but then, it depends on Joe Biden's supporters, because Joe Biden's supporters may not go along with this. This is a problem. What about Michelle Obama? She's already said no. I don't think she wants to get involved, and it will be messy now. So whoever's going to take over, it's going to be taking over a mess. And I think Michelle Obama, if she were to run, it would be next time in 2028. So I don't. She has already ruled it out. She said no, and I don't think it was to garner attention. She just said no, I'm not going to do it. The US won't elect a woman, in my opinion. Thanks, Gareth. I don't think it's about women. I don't think it's about that, but you could be right. The problem with Hillary Clinton was it was almost the arrogance of Hillary Clinton in 2016 really sunk her campaign. Well, it's my turn. It's her turn. Even her supporters had banners like, I think they had banners like, it was her turn. My God, like the arrogance of that was part of and then of course she called the Trump supporters degenerates. Was it degenerates or derangenal or something? It's not a good idea to attack the voters. You attack the candidate, but don't attack the voters.
Rights. And in late 2023 signed a bill to give women more choice and said that she feared nationally of a potential abortion ban.
I think this would be a great candidate, but I don't know if there are enough people in the US who would be in support of this.
The prospect of a national abortion ban is real when you look at all the Republicans who are running for president.
Not everyone in America.
This as in her positions, because maybe while I think most mainstream voters, ordinary voters, would be supportive of, we need to protect women's rights. I don't know if I think this could be turned into a wedge issue.
Is keen on the issues she campaigns for, though. In 2022...
Thanks for that. Deplorables, okay. Yeah, they are deplorables, but you don't call them deplorables, because what it does is it pisses people off. It pisses off people who are on, so-called independents as well. They'd be like, hey, don't insult the voters. You don't go around insulting the voters.
National attention when 3 men were convicted of plotting to kidnap her because of her strict COVID policies in 2020.
A sincere
Jesus Christ.
apology to the governor.
I was pleased with the outcome. I think that the rise in hate and threats and domestic terrorism in this country is really concerning.
So, who else could take Biden's place?
President Pete! President Pete!
How about Secretary of Transportation's Pete Buttigieg? After spending 8 years as the mayor of South Bend, a small town in Indiana, he ran for the 2020 presidential election. Buttigieg was the youngest candidate in that race at only 38 years old. He also became the first openly gay candidate to run for president. But after coming fourth in the South Carolina primary, after Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Tom Steyer, Buttigieg dropped out of the race and then endorsed Joe Biden. The newly elected President Biden appointed him as Secretary of Transportation.
I've also had a personal love of transportation ever since childhood.
He's overseeing the implementation of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill passed in 2021, which improved road safety and connections. But during his time, he also came under scrutiny over a series of high-profile train derailments and widespread flight delays and cancellations. Another name that has been talked about is...
Okay, I think Buttigieg is probably one of the front runners here, because he ran last time. He has a lot of name recognition, and there's a commentator called Vosh who mentioned because Peter Buttigieg, I'm forgetting his name already. Buttigieg, because he's gay, that in a sense the Republicans will be afraid to attack him, because the Republicans don't want to piss off gay people, because it's no longer the 1990s. Garrett, thanks to you so much for that support there. Thanks. Yes, what about Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders is not mentioned in this report whatsoever, apart from in passing reference. Bernie Sanders would be a wonderful president. But Bernie Sanders had, it in his grasp, and it was taken from him by the Democrats in 2020. Bernie Sanders could have been in Joe Biden's position. And would we be talking about this? Of course not. Joe Biden did a lot of good things, but Bernie Sanders would have been a much better president, and we wouldn't be there'd be no chance of Donald Trump there'd be no mention of him beating Bernie Sanders. The reason Donald Trump is doing so well is because Joe Biden is seen as extremely weak and too old. Sanders is too left-wing later. But if he was president, that's the thing. If he had been president at this stage, I think he would. Sanders is too old, but he doesn't have issues with his age. That's the thing. Maybe he's too old, but I think they'd probably go with Buttigieg or the guy from California. Anyway, guys, let's take a short comedy moment, and we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff. So I hope you enjoy this.
Hi Liz, come and take a seat. Where? On the seat. Oh no, I don't like seats. They'll turn against me and oust me. Okay, just stand. I will one day. I mean, they need me back as Prime Minister. Can I sit down, please? Okay, so in terms of skills, it says you're really good at finance. Oh yes, 7 times 10 equals growth. Okay. It does say that you crashed the economy in 49 days. Yes, but that wasn't my fault. That was the OBR and the deep state. And what does OBR stand for? It also does say that you killed the Queen. No, I just happened to shake her hand very hard. It's not my fault she's got weak hands. Besides, it was my big day, not hers. Selfish. Right. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Couple of questions for you. Would you say that you're a team player? Look, there's no I in team, but there is a me. T-E-M-E. Cool. Are you a people person? Oh yes, as long as they're not woke people. Any passions? Oh yes, food. Great Britannia food. Okay, let's try you out somewhere. Hi, can I get a vegan burger, please? So that's 1 pork and cheeseburger. No, vegan. 1 pork and cheeseburger. Vegan. Get out, you wokey! That is a disgrace. Okay, so that didn't go too well. Perhaps you're better when you just don't say anything at all. Liz? Sorry, what? Hang on. I've got the perfect job for you. Hang on, I didn't do a concession speech, so technically I'm still MP of North, South, West, East, Norfolk. I'm back, baby.
Wonderful. David Shepherd has a serious question. Let me find David's question. How much super chat money do people have to pay to get Maximilian Robespierre to do the stream with Darth Vader mascot? And there was me waiting for a serious question. Well, if you want, maybe I should, that people talk about OnlyFans. No. I've threatened an OnlyFans. Yeah, I'll open an OnlyFans if you don't subscribe. Let's see. I'll see about maybe doing a little bit of a live stream, because it's a bit difficult to see out of it, and it's really hot inside. So I'll definitely consider it. Thanks for that. Okay, let's move on. Serious stuff. So, Justice Secretary announces emergency measures to tackle prison population crisis. So the government has just announced measures to tackle overcrowding in prisons, as places are due to run out within weeks. There are just 708 adult male prison places left left last week, and jails have routinely been running at 99% capacity since the start of 2023. To tackle the immediate crisis, the Justice Secretary is announcing that from September, certain prisoners will be released after serving 40% of their sentences rather than 50%. A number of exemptions will apply to the scheme. People serving sentences for serious violent offences of 4 years or more, as well as sex offences, will be automatically excluded. People convicted of crimes related to domestic abuse will also not be eligible for release, such as stalking offences, controlled or coercive behaviour in an intimate or family relationship, non-fatal strangulation or suffocation, breach of restraining order, non-molestation order, domestic abuse protection order. Those released will be monitored through the probation service and could be subject to curfews and electronic tagging. The Justice Secretary has said that these are emergency measures due to the exploding prison population. Alongside the immediate measures, she's announcing a pledge to recruit over 1,000 additional trainee probation officers by March 2025. She'll be working on clear plans to build prisons quicker, and a 10-year capacity strategy will be published in the autumn. So what's this all about? Well, prisons are overflowing. They're reaching capacity. They've reached capacity in a number of cases, and they have to let people out. They can't send more people in because there's no place to put them. So, and this was a problem created by the Conservatives. Now, the Conservatives today have come out and said, well, you shouldn't be really releasing all these people. That's a sort of high-level version of it. But basically, they were criticizing the government and saying, well, the government, how come they don't use our wonderful foreign deportation program? Well, we'll have to look into that. how will Labour fix the NHS? So I was going to let's get on to the NHS. So we'll move on from this article. I want to go to the NHS because it's an important question. It's the main one for the live stream. How is the So first of all, there are a number of problems with the NHS, like the wait times.
Simon Surgeon.
Hayley Scrub Nurse. Sunita Anaesthetist.
Manon Scrub Nurse.
Sonia ATP.
Simon Gonsalves is preparing his team for surgery.
We're going to use a flexible sigmoid scale.
First on his list this morning is a 55-year-old male rectal cancer survivor.
We're looking to go on to improve his quality of life by reversing his stoma.
The NHS waiting list in England has grown again, and this is exactly the sort of life-changing procedure that patients are having to endure lengthy waits for.
It's very important to patients. What we're trying to do is to ensure that this gentleman can then go on to live a normal life after his rectal cancer treatment, after surviving his rectal cancer treatment.
Are you happy that you understand what we're doing today?
Everything, yeah.
Diane knows just how important early intervention is. Her breast cancer was found in June and removed just weeks later.
I've heard horror stories and listened to other people, but this is my first experience of an operation. It's literally...
This is why the NHS is so important. This is why it needs to be prioritised. You see there... Love the track on, thanks so much. You see there how somebody was diagnosed and treated immediately. So they were in and out of hospital pretty quickly. And she'll go on to describe her experience. But this is so important because the longer it's left, the worse it is for patients, but it's also more expensive to treat people. What it seems what the Labour government are going to do is redirect funding from the NHS to GPs, which in a sense makes sense. No, I think the NHS needs more funding, of course, but what the plan is if GPs have more money, more resources, they can catch illnesses beforehand, before it's necessary for people to go into hospital. So there have been cases, for example, when it comes to dentistry, where there aren't enough NHS dentist places, so children are ending up in A&E and getting general anaesthetic to get teeth removed. Just think about that for a moment. Children are not being able to be seen by a dentist because the contract dentists have is terrible. That needs to be replaced. The Tories have not funded the NHS dentistry sufficiently, so that's a massive problem. So what's happening is you're having children who could have easily gone to a dentist, had a tooth repaired or removed, in a dentist surgery, but instead, because they're not able to get to the dentist, it gets worse. The tooth gets infected, and then they end up going to hospital. They have to be given general anaesthetic. Just think about how terrible it is to be given general anaesthetic. When you go to the dentist, you get a local anaesthetic, a small anaesthetic. You get it's quite a painful injection, but they numb the gum or the jaw. But imagine having to get general anaesthetic to get a tooth removed or to get some sort of work done. That's terrible for the individual, but it's also a massive cost for the NHS. And then, of course, it's taking up space because the person has to be treated in the hospitals. That's a space that's being used up. These are resources being used. Doctors, nurses that could have been doing something else are looking after this child because they weren't able to see a dentist. So if you're able to deal with the front end, so the first port of call, GPs, dentists, which it seems to be what they're doing. Look, it's still early days, okay, very early days, so we don't know whether Labour are going to be able to fix these problems. But if they're focusing on the front end and providing GPs with what they need and dentists with what they need, because the recent meeting with the British Dental Associations was quite positive. So that's good. Labour should make room in our prisons for the Tories, yes. Build new prisons, Tory prisons. You could use the Bibi Stockholm.
It's been so quick. I haven't had time in between to even think or worry too much.
Calderdale and Huddersfield NHS Foundation Trust has turned one of the longest waiting lists in the country into one of the shortest. And one of the ways it's managed this is by incentivising theatre staff to work at weekends.
Now, this is a double-edged sword. So in giving them an incentive to work at the weekends, more money, obviously, overtime or whatever, or maybe, you can work, if you work at weekends, we give you more holidays or something like that. But anyway, they're giving them some sort of incentive. They're working at weekends. This is a good thing, but you don't want the staff to burn out, because if they're working too many weekends, then they're going to end up, getting sick themselves, and then they'll need time off, and this is, of course, problematic.
The Health Secretary wants to repeat the success that this trust has had with reducing its waiting list across the NHS, but the challenge is huge. England has fewer hospital beds, lower numbers of key staff, and spent less on equipment and buildings than other comparable health systems.
Let me read some of your comments, guys, because you guys make the stream. Random Scottish History, great to see you on the stream. Hope you're well. My dentist at least lets me get fillings without the jab. Don't haste the jab. Hate the unnecessary rubber face after. Yes, the same with, I had to go to the dentist recently, and they said, look, do you want us to try without the numbness? And I said, okay. He says, look, raise your hand if you start to feel any pain. So I didn't feel any pain in one particular case, so we didn't use it. So it's also faster for the dentist, I think. And then it's also cheaper, because I think this type of injection it's not very healthy, but it's also quite expensive. Waiting for Max to suggest dental care through the back end. Simon, that's terrible. To get through the back end. When I'm at the dentist, I dream of them doing it under general anesthetic most times. Yeah, I know sometimes it can be preferred, especially if there's a lot to be done. QA Library, thank you for that comment. QA Library is great for research. I looked up the figures the other night. The old government took at £221 million from just GP services alone. West knows best. Well, we'll have to wait and see if West knows best. I don't warm to West Streeting, but if he's good at his job, that's fine. Yeah, he comes across. Look, I've covered him before. I said he's an arrogant arsehole. But if he's good at doing his job, if he's actually going to do things to improve the service, that's good. Now there are concerns over fund of donations he's received from private healthcare, which is important to point out. And I hope he's going to be challenged on that. But so far, he's had a meeting with the British Dental Association, and they have had a positive reaction to that. And the junior doctors, the BMA, have said that they're going to call off their strike action because of the meeting they had with West Streeting. Like, he's done more for relations between government and public service providers, the civil servants, the doctors, than in a week than the Tories achieved in 14 years.
The new Health Secretary is aware of the challenges. He's ordered an official investigation into the state of the health service.
The NHS is broken. The issues that we've been talking about during the election campaign, the waiting lists, ambulances not arriving on time, people queuing around the block to see a GP, not being able to find a dentist, all of that is evident.
But much of his ambition relies on an exhausted workforce to step up again. Describing the NHS as broken might not help.
Look, maybe not describing it, he shouldn't describe it as broken, but has been broken. It has been broken as in it's been broken by the Conservatives.
Health Secretary says the NHS is broken or wrecked. Is that useful language for you?
What I see on a day-to-day basis is that we provide some really excellent services for patients, and we get feedback that tells us as much. There is a challenge with morale, but I think it's about focusing on how we can create safe work environments.
Diane's cancer has spread to her lymph nodes, and this, her second operation inside a month, will remove it. A national health service that, when it works properly, is saving and changing lives.
And that's why it needs to be supported. That's why it needs to be given the funding it requests. We're seeing an older generation. Older generations, of course, require more healthcare and more expensive healthcare. And this is the frustrating part of it about it as well. As the Conservatives' response to all of this is, we need to reduce immigration. Like, if British people, people in the UK are having fewer children because of the cost of living crisis, because of housing, for a whole number of reasons. If people are having fewer children, it means you're going to have, a situation where you're going to have a bigger, older population who are, and this is not to be crass or anything, but more of a burden on healthcare. You're going to need somebody to pay into that healthcare system. You need young people working to pay into that's the way the system works. Whether it's a good way or not, that's how it is. We need young people, fit young people working, paying into a healthcare system to help fund it for an older generation. And if we start reducing the amount of young people coming in, then we're going to end up with a system that's going to collapse because we won't have anyone paying into it. Or we'll have to go down the private route. So you'll only get healthcare if you can pay for it. It's all very simple, really. If Labour fix a few things in the next 5 years, they'll get 5 more. Yeah, if they're able, it's all. But it comes down to perception as well. So they have to fix things, but they have to be able to show that they have fixed things. So it's not just about fixing things, but also showing to the public we have actually fixed things. And if they do, then they'll be given more time in government. Like, the Tories are at each other's throats. They're like rats in a bag at the moment, which is great to see. It seems Kemi Badenoch or Suella Braverman, or no, maybe not Suella Braverman, Tom Tugendhat. No, James Cleverly or Kemi Badenoch could be the next leader of the Conservative Party. Suella Braverman has gone beyond the pale completely. But it's so the Conservatives are not going anywhere at the moment. So there's an opportunity for Labour to do some good in England, at least. When it comes to Scotland and Wales, that's a different story. A policy that's not very popular in Scotland, for example, the 2-child benefit cap. So 1.6 million children now affected by the 2-child benefit cap as Starmer faces pressure to scrap it. I really don't understand why he doesn't scrap this immediately. It's a cost, but you can find the money. You cost it. You say, this is how much it's going to cost. Let's get rid of this policy that is punishing children. Like, you even had Suella Braverman say, I think it's a bad policy. Like, she's of course an opportunist. Would she, if she was in charge, would she get rid of it? Probably not. But this is harming children. It's a very bad policy. The Conservative government introduced the cap, which prevents parents from claiming tax credit or universal credit for more than 2 children for those born after April 2017. This means families cannot claim more than $3,200 a year per extra child, the Resolution Foundation has said. An economist at the organisation said that there was little evidence that the policy had achieved its goals of boosting employment, but there was clear evidence of financial loss for families. Look, it was a sort of stick approach to the Tories were using. If you have more children, you need to work. If you work, it will lift you out of poverty. Of course, it doesn't do that. People are working more and working more jobs, but they're still relying on food banks and universal credit. Unless the policy is abolished, the majority of children in large families will fall below the poverty line by the end of this parliament. She added, any new child poverty strategy should find the funds to remove it. The latest government statistics show that a total of 1.6 million children in April were affected by the cap. Of those 1.6 million, 1.3 million were in households claiming universal credit who are on a low or no income, and 270,000 were claiming child tax credit, which is available to everyone. The number of households affected has risen from 71,000 in April 2017 to 450,000 this April. My goodness. So Keir Starmer has previously said the cap should be scrapped, but U-turned last year saying that he would not axe it if Labour won power due to the state of the finances they have inherited. Look, I think Starmer will eventually excuse me. I think Starmer will eventually get rid of the cap because of the political pressure. But it would be a clever approach to get rid of it sooner rather than later. Because if you get rid of it later, it shows that you'll end up doing it anyway, but you will have been outmaneuvered by the other parties. So if the Conservatives start talking about the two-child benefit cap, you need to get rid of it before they start talking about it. If they start talking about it, it's too late. You've lost. So he could, and I hate to talk about it in these terms, but he could win this battle by getting rid of it straight away. And of course, it would benefit so many people, so many families, the poorest families. This is what we're talking about. He could deliver, the end of it with some fanfare and get a bit of a boost out of that. But the longer it stays in place, the more it's going to be a problem. And he'll eventually, this is how these things happen. It becomes a massive problem and then they get rid of it. But then at that stage, they're seen as, political opportunists or weak, or, it'll be criticized. We still have Farage, yes, unfortunately. So I do hope that they realize, look, the two-child benefit cap is a mistake. It needs to go. For humanitarian reasons, first and foremost. So on the issue of crime, so I just want to cover a bit more on that.
No good options. That was the incredibly stark message here today from the Justice Secretary as she announced what she knows is a risky strategy, releasing a raft of...
I just want to respond to QA Library's question. Max, what do you think will be in the King's speech on the 17th of July? I think what they'll talk about is pretty much the stuff of the manifesto. So they're going to talk about energy. They're going to talk, the speech will contain something about energy. We'll talk about the NHS, about bringing down the waiting lists, what they're going to do there, probably class sizes, education. So I think it'd be pretty much everything that was in the manifesto will be in the King's speech. So the King's speech, for people who don't know, is the programme for government, in a sense, the programme for the next Parliament, what the government hope to achieve in the next Parliament, or their objectives for the next Parliament, for this Parliament. So Parliament will reopen officially on the 17th of July. And then you'll probably have, I don't remember what day it is. I don't know if there'll be a PMQs on that day. But so there'll be a bit of fanfare about that. So, but business will start then, and then they'll go into recess. So, as soon as Parliament reopens, it's like, it's summer. We have to go on holiday again. Now, it's possible that Labour will postpone recess. Recess will still take place, summer recess, which is about a month long, I think. It's really annoying because I like to cover things in Parliament. I like the debates. I like what happens with PMQs. I like, in particular, the select committees. But it all shuts down during recess, and they have a lot of recesses. Anyway, it's a Wednesday, Max. Okay, thanks so much, Derek. So there'll be probably a PMQs that day. Max, do you think it's completely mental that some have already blamed Labour for things? It's been less than 14 days and yet the problems are 14 years. Yes, and look, and I've actually done a video on this that drops tomorrow morning. What the Tories are doing is they're blaming, and they're using their friends in the media to blame Labour for everything so far. Like when they were in power, they were blaming Labour, the previous Labour government, even until weeks ago. And of course, they're blaming Labour for these things. Now, the massive problem for Labour is there's an absolute disaster. For example, the prison system, which we're going to see here. People have to be released from prison because there are no spaces left. Like, there are people who have to be put in prison. Very serious criminals, dangerous people who have to be put in prison. So, would you prefer somebody who's in prison for a non-violent crime, who do you want to be put in prison? A person who's committed a non-violent crime or a dangerous individual? You want the dangerous individual. Well, there's only one spot available. So one person has to be moved out in order for another to be moved in. They're going to monitor all of these people coming out. There's a risk that some people slip through the net. Some people are released who shouldn't be released. But this is the Tories. The Tories have been in charge for 14 years. They could have built enough prisons. They decided not to. They could have hired more prison officers. They decided not to. They could have paid prison officers better wages and provide them better conditions. They decided not to. Prison cells that are supposed to hold 1 or 2 prisoners have like 4 or 5 prisoners inside. It's at breaking point. Prisoners have complained about the quality of the food and the amount of food as well. It's a disaster. It's almost Victorian. And, it's important for the government to be held to account, but we have to understand that you can't build a prison in a day. You can't hire 10,000 prison officers in a day. So this is going to take a long time. Some people could be released who shouldn't be in prison in the first place. In the sense that they're not a threat to society. People who have, been smoking marijuana or something, or people who have been maybe dealing in marijuana. Like, are these people a serious threat to society? Probably not. So it's probably better to have these people, sent home, put them on probation. But then the probation service needs to be properly funded as well, because it has been cut. So everything that, it's like you're trying to fix a problem. It's like, there's a hole in the window, okay, and you need to fix the window. But you realize that the previous owner of the house that you're living in didn't leave any glass around or didn't leave any tools for you to fix the window. So you have to try and use some, sellotape or something. But then you're looking around for sellotape, but there's no sellotape. That's what the Tories are like. Like, okay, I'll try and use some bin liner. I'll use some bin liner. Wait a minute, the bin liner they got was too small, so I can't use that. Like, I'm just throwing stuff out off the top of my head. But this is like what the Tories have left the country in, left the economy in.
Prisoners early, starting in September. Now, in a blistering attack, as you mentioned, on her predecessors, she called the former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his government the guilty men. Guilty, she said, of leaving her facing a choice between a prison system on the verge of collapse, so close to capacity it couldn't even cope with an outbreak of bedbugs, or, she said, the complete and utter collapse of law and order. Now, there is a very clear strategy here. Make absolutely plain the huge scale of this crisis. Make absolutely plain that it is a crisis not of your making, and hope that the public accept how you're trying to fix it and give you the time to do it. At least that's the plan. Prison after prison, an entire system in crisis. A crisis now this government's responsibility. Today, the new Justice Secretary visited Bedford.
Sorry to laugh, but I'm just reading some of the comments. The previous owner didn't include a wall. Yes, that's a better analogy. DWP reforms will be what I'll be judging Labour on, and it's important that there are some things that they can fix with the stroke of a pen. Okay, it doesn't require funding. So, for example, the entire attitude to people who are on benefits, that can be changed overnight. We're not going to treat them like scum. We're actually going to treat them like human beings. So from the top down, and if you're working in the job centre, you must treat people on benefits like fellow human beings. That would be a good start, I think. Paul, thank you so much for that super chat. A bit ironic that the Tories are criticising Labour releasing prisoners when they've been doing it themselves. Yes, they have been releasing people from prison all the time. And of course, they haven't been putting people in prison like themselves, who should be behind bars. Labour should have won the one in 2010. I think the problem was the economic background, and Gordon Brown got blamed for a lot of that.
Prison, one of 5 jails effectively put into special measures. Prisoners said to be left penned in squalor, in rat-infested filthy wings, safety not guaranteed. But the most immediate element of this crisis is overcrowding. And today, she announced her plan for trying to relieve some of the pressure in a system at boiling point.
Those responsible, Sunak and his gang in number 10, should go down in history as the guilty men. The guilty men who put their political careers ahead of the safety and security of our country. It was the most disgraceful dereliction of duty I have ever known. The last government left us with a time bomb ticking away. If we fail to act now, we face the collapse of the criminal justice system and a total breakdown of law and order.
There are just over 700 prison places left across the entire adult prison estate in England and Wales.
This would be like telling people, please don't commit any crimes. Please don't commit any crimes for the next number of months because we don't have any prison places.
The prison system has been working at 99% capacity for more than 18 months, a situation described as catastrophic. Without urgent action, prison sources predict August bank holiday could be a tipping point. The emergency measures announced today could see thousands more prisoners released early after serving less than half their sentence. Will it be enough? This is not a new plan, but an acceleration of an early release scheme introduced by the Conservative government last October. More than 10,000 prisoners let out early since.
Unless and until more money is put in, we will lurch from crisis to crisis.
Middlesbrough solicitor Simon Walker told us he and other lawyers are seeing offenders let out without any notice. Tents or sleeping bags often the only support. The inevitable consequence of early release for some, a pretty early return to jail. One of his clients, he says, a perfect illustration of an imperfect plan.
He's got mental health problems, he's got drug problems. He was released on the 9th of May. He'd expected to be released on the 6th of June, and that was the target date for the provision of somewhere for him to live.
Jeez, like it's like a Pandora's box. You start you open up what the Tories have done or not done in many cases, and it just gets worse and worse. So they're telling people, okay, we're going to release you in June. So that, well, what we're going to do is organise some sort of accommodation. Oh, actually, we're going to release you today. But what about June? No, in a month's time. No, we're going to actually release you today. Okay, well, where do I go? Your problem.
He was released on the 9th of May to homelessness.
He didn't want to be released.
He didn't want to be released without having somewhere to go to. He committed offences on the 10th, 11th and 12th over the weekend of that weekend. Was back in court on the Monday and is now doing a longer sentence than the one that he would otherwise have completed had he been allowed to complete it in June.
So on.
It's just one case, and the cost related to this, and of course he's taking up a prison place, but there's also there's so many costs that we can link to this. Like the cost of arresting him, the court cost. Obviously, this guy probably has no money; he can't pay for this. The cost of putting him back into prison, and the cost of rehabilitation in prison, because of course there are rehabilitation services. While he could have been a free man and getting support in the community, where he would be away from the idea of reoffending. It's just insane, and this is just one case. Like a 1 month difference could have made a huge amount of difference to all of this.
No level has that worked.
No, it's completely failed.
Having overseen the explosion in the prison population and introduced early release themselves.
Like, I wonder, like, when Tory ministers hear stories like this, what is their response to that? They're like, well, I don't care. Not my problem. Like, is that their response? Like, if I was in charge of something and I heard something like this happened, if I was in charge of a department and I heard something, it's like, oh my God, how the hell did that happen? We need to sort that out.
One former Conservative Justice Secretary today, still keen to offer advice to his successor.
It's the first time in many years that we've hit this particular situation, but it's clear...
Robert, shut the F up. It's like the arsonist coming around to give fire safety advice. Don't worry, I'm here. I lost my seat, but I'm back. Don't worry, I'm here to give Labour advice. I've wrecked the place. I'm coming back to tell them what they should do. They have no sense of, I don't know what.
To me, that whilst measures do have to be taken, that it is incumbent upon officials and ministers to make sure they don't release people who could pose a risk.
Go F yourself. Go F yourself. How dare you turn around now and say, well, the Labour government should be careful about releasing these people. Okay, well, yeah, we released somebody who shouldn't have been released. We released him a month early and now he's back in prison. Well, yeah, but remember, the Labour government need to... Have they no shame? Like, does he have no sense of embarrassment? Like, he actually volunteered to do an interview. Like, if I was in his case, I'd be like, no, sorry, I'm not available. I'm on holiday at the moment. Not taking any calls. Like, what's wrong with these people? Do they have a functioning brain? Is it like, okay, here's an opportunity for me to be on TV talking absolute tripe? It's an opportunity
to the public, and I would expect the highest degree of scrutiny before any prisoners are released early.
The government insists that no sexual, violent or terrorist offenders will be eligible for early release. But a probation manager, who asked to remain anonymous, told us with probation already under severe strain, a raft of early release prisoners can only make things worse.
See, as I said before, the probation service is under a massive amount of strain. It doesn't have the staff necessary. So a lot of people will be released. There won't be enough probation officers to monitor them. So people are going to slip through the net. People are going to be forgotten about. People are not going to be monitored. And unfortunately, I hope this is not the case, but unfortunately some of these people may be dangerous and they may reoffend. Like, we hope that they won't. But it's possible. And whose fault is this? Is it the Labour government for releasing these people? No, it's not. They're dealing with a terrible situation. And look, once again, I'm not defending Labour here. This is the reality of the situation. Like, if you don't release people, then courts will decide not to send people to prison because there'll be no place to send them. Like, you're going to have a situation where violent criminals are not sent to prison because there are no places. And there are people who have not committed a violent crime will be sitting in prison because they can't be released. The Tories should have ended... I really don't understand why the Tories ended up with 110, 112 seats. They should have ended up with 0 seats. 0. Nobody should have been re-elected as a Conservative. They don't deserve to be in Parliament. They don't deserve to be interviewed after they've lost their seat. They don't deserve to be anywhere near politics. This is what they have done. People's lives are at risk here. And they just don't give a crap. And they're trying to make hay out of the situation. Oh, look, here's an opportunity for us to blame the new government for doing things trying to fix problems that we created. Privatisation is also a problem, well said Stu. Would this issue have happened if we stayed in the EU? Well, this isn't really related to the EU because these are decisions made by the British government. So, like, potentially you could have more prison officers if you're able to recruit from abroad, but generally I'm not sure the percentage of EU workers who work in the prison system. See, the problem is not so much prison officers, the number of prison officers, it's about overcrowding. You need to build more prisons. So, and it's not... The reason that the Tories haven't built enough prisons is because it's expensive or because they can't access the workers or because of costly building materials. It's not because of Brexit. They just decided it's a political decision not to build more prisons because because it costs a lot of money. And the Tories didn't like spending money on public services. They preferred to give the money to their friends and donors. So if you keep giving money to Dido Harding, for example, £37 billion, you don't have much left over to build prisons. And also building prisons is not something the public like to see. The public want to see people put in prison, but they don't want to see prisons being built. There's a terrible irony there. It's a terrible contradiction, a terrible paradox. I don't know which way you want to put it, but people, like the voter wants criminals, and both violent and non-violent, put in prison, but they don't want more prisons because prisons are expensive. The voters will never be happy. And I know I said not to criticize the voters before. Brian, thank you so much for that super chat. How to boost the economy: make the Tory leadership contest a cage fight tournament. A Suella Kemi final would make the Euros look like a Sunday league. Well said. Cage fight. Any other suggestions for Jacob Rees-Mogg with an umbrella versus, I don't know who, Robert Jenrick with a spray can to spray over murals? that would be their fighting tools. Not in my backyard, NIMBY. Yes, that's another problem with building prisons. It's like, yeah, you can build prisons, but not where I live. Build them on the other side of the river, not on my side. And that's the part of the problem. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. So I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job as always. Before we finish, we have our one for the road. So I hope you enjoy that as well. A great way to support the channel is by sending me super chats, but obviously not everyone can do that. But another way you can support the channel is just by sharing videos on social media. This is a great way to help me out. Like, subscribe, share the videos with your friends if you can. But before we finish, we have our one for the road. I love these guys. They're the best. Hope you enjoyed it.
Welcome to Broken News. Reporters and journalists around the UK have been left at a loose end during the worst shortage of political scandal in living memory. It follows over a decade of almost constant news out of Westminster, but there's no suggestion of when the current dry patch will end. Well, let's cross to our political reporter, Chef McGubbins, who's been on the hunt for scandal. Chef, what have you been hearing?
Well, Rodney, yes, very little is the answer, I'm afraid. There was that little bit of footage, wasn't there, of Angela Rayner wearing short shorts while supporting HIV charities. We tried to whip that up into a big story, but unfortunately, no one biting.
OK, and aside from that, what else has there been?
Well, as I say, Rodney, very little in terms of scandal in Westminster.
Angela Rayner in short shorts? Is that the best you can do? You've had a week. They've been in power a week. You've got nothing. Nothing whatsoever.
So maybe there is one story which is potentially a major story developing. So at the state reopening of Parliament, one of the new intake of MPs, they're there their first day, their opening speech, they're sitting in the House of Commons. Apparently one of the new MPs let one go.
Sorry, they let one go?
Quite a bad one, from my sources in Westminster.
So that's the best you've got?
Quite a bad one.
One of the new intakers hoofed out an earth surprise on the benches. Is there nothing else? There's been no corruption, backhanders, someone getting finger blasted in number 11?
What?
Nothing whatsoever.
As I say, now, one of my Westminster sources, no doubt, updating me on, that's Mum.
Well, does she have anything?
Not related to Westminster.
What was she messaging about?
It's about Christmas. It's early in the year, but I could talk about the football.
I don't want the football. You're a politics reporter.
Well, it's...
So you've got nothing else? What a lovely story. That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
Wonderful, guys. So have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. As always, take care. Stay safe. Good night.